This is lesson 65 of History of the Churches, Churches in Modern Times, Part 8. And so we're going to pick up where we left off last time with the last lesson. And this is a re-recording of the lesson from October 17th, 2021, due to the audio issues we were having back at that time. And we did eventually get it straightened out, but it took a little while to realize we had a problem with a component of our wireless microphone system, and it had gotten bumped or hit the floor basically, and it appeared like it was working, and then we went for a little while, realized it wasn't working, then it seemed like it was working again, and then come to find out it wasn't. So we did eventually get that replaced, but this is the re-recording of Lesson 65 of History of the Churches as we continue with Churches in Modern Times. We're going to talk about Bob Jones, very influential in the Fundamentalist movement. And Bob Jones Sr., who lived from 1883 to 1968, was one of the most influential men in fundamentalism and was a bridge between interdenominational fundamentalism and fundamental Baptists. And what you'll find out if you look at the history of Bob Jones, that many who have attended or been affiliated with Bob Jones University would claim to be or had claimed to be fundamental Baptists, and some may still claim the mantle of fundamentalism, but still many of them part of Baptist churches. But Bob Jones Sr. was not even a Baptist to start with. His father was an immersed Methodist, and his mother was a primitive Baptist. He was converted at age 11, baptized by Baptists, so there's his connection with being a Baptist, but then joined a Methodist church. And at age 12, he held his first week-long evangelistic meeting, which resulted in 60 conversions. At age 13, he started preaching on Sunday afternoons, and a Methodist church was started for his converts. At age 15, he was licensed as a circuit preacher for the Alabama Methodist Conference. By age 16, he was the circuit pastor of 5 churches. He attended a Methodist secondary school and Southern College in Greensboro, Alabama. He was so prominent of an evangelist that he left college and went into full-time evangelism in 1904 at age 21. And by the way, some of the things we've seen here now with Bob Jones and then some previous ones, they got started at a young age, and of course God takes people down different paths on their journey of following Him at different ages and different stages of their life. But it's a good illustration, though, a good lesson to learn that it is possible for young people to serve the Lord. It is possible for young people not to waste their lives and just go through teen years floundering, wandering, wondering what's next. Now they can serve the Lord right where they're at. They can serve the Lord through their lives as they're growing up, maturing, and in that very important transition between childhood and adulthood. And we see here with Bob Jones, he was, by age 16, he was the circuit pastor of 5 churches. And I'm not saying that a 16-year-old should be a pastor, needs to be a pastor at this time, but he was. And could it be possible for a 16-year-old? Well, how many 16-year-olds have the maturity? Have the filling of the Holy Spirit to be a pastor. Probably not so many now, but here we have, and of course he's an outlier. He's very unique, and that's why they make the history books, because they are a bit unique and notable in what they did, or at least made a bigger splash in America. And we're talking about American history, but it is possible for young people to serve the Lord and not waste their lives, go through life, go through those formidable years, and they can be very valuable years of just following the Lord. But he got married so he went into full-time evangelism in 1904 at age 21. He got married in 1905, but his wife died 10 months later of tuberculosis. He remarried in 1908, and his only son was born in 1911 and named Bob Jr. By the 1920s and in his 40s, he was one of the most famous evangelists in America. By 1923, at age 40, he had preached 12,000 sermons in 30 countries to more than 15 million people. He was known for catchy sayings. Some of them are the acid test of our love. The acid test of our love for God is obedience to His Word. Trust God as if it all depends upon Him, and work as if it all depends upon you. And one that I've heard quoted quite a bit from him, attributed to him, is, "It is never right to do wrong in order to do right." Another one is, "What you love and what you hate reveal what you are." He also said, "It is a sin to do less than your best." Don't sacrifice the permanent on the altar of the immediate. God will never use a quitter. Religion without salvation leads to damnation. The test of a man's character is what it takes to stop him. Jones wanted to start a liberal arts college to provide a Christian alternative to the secular humanism and theological liberalism of other colleges. In 1924, William Jennings Bryan told Jones, "If schools do not quit teaching evolution as a fact, we are going to become a nation of atheists." And that is happening. Evolution is taught as a fact. Schools teach it. That's really at the heart of it, is the education system. And more atheists, or at the very least, not living with any regard for God whatsoever, and don't even want to regard God, even if they believe in a God of some sort, not as the Creator, the Almighty God. The Scopes trial of 1925 played a part in influencing Jones to start a Christian school, because the creationists won the trial, but they lost in the court of public opinion with the mainstream media. Jones told his incredulous wife when he said what he wanted to do, he said, "I know I can't, but God can." Bob Jones College began in September of 1927 in Lynn Haven, Florida, with 88 students. The original Bob Jones catalog said, "The purpose of the Bob Jones College is to educate in the arts and sciences and at the same time give spiritual things their rightful place, to develop the mind and preserve the faith once for all delivered to the saints, to increase the student's knowledge and protect his moral integrity, to enlarge the intellectual horizon and maintain the Christian hope." In 1929, the college barely survived bankruptcy as the Great Depression began. In 1933, the college was moved to Cleveland, Tennessee, and continued to grow through the 30s and 40s. In 1947, the college was moved to Greenville, South Carolina, due to the need for larger facilities, and was renamed Bob Jones University. And by the way, Billy Graham attended Bob Jones College when it was in Tennessee, or maybe it was when it was in Florida, but he attended Bob Jones College for a short time, but it was a bit too strict for Billy Graham. He really didn't like to submit to the rules there, and he left. There were 2,500 students at that time, and was the largest Christian college in the world. The focus was on training preachers in its early years, but that focus shifted by the 1960s. Bob Jones Sr. founded the Gospel Fellowship Association in 1939, and this was to promote evangelism and church planting with a focus on supporting Bob Jones graduates. It then became a parachurch mission agency for the support and oversight of missionaries. Bob Jones held strict standards and had a strong emphasis on character at the school. And as I mentioned about Billy Graham, he didn't like their strict standards, and so he left. Bob Jones Jr. lived from 1911 to 1997, became president of the college. He graduated from Bob Jones College in 1931 and from the University of Pittsburgh in 1933 with a degree in history. He did graduate work at the University of Chicago Divinity School and studied Shakespearean acting at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon. He was outspoken against error as a preacher, including the Pope, the Jesuits, and the Charismatics. And he was very much into the arts, and excessively so, too much so to where he got into some questionable things. One of the things that they did do when he was president of the college, they were known for some full-length movies, and one of them is called The Printing, and it's an excellent movie. And but they he plays the villain in it, actually, one of the Minister of Religious Affairs for the Soviet Union who's persecuting Christians. But he was very much into the arts, very much into acting, and he took the school more down that path as far as in the arts area. While much Bible has been preached at Bob Jones University, it has also held a weak interdenominational stance, and this just continues to go in that direction. In 1987, Bob Jones III joined with the American Council of Christian Churches to create the Council of Bible-Believing Churches International. It was intended to be a worldwide fellowship crossing many denominational lines and bring separatist churches together under the banner of truth for the glory of God. And those things just are bound not to work. When you're crossing denominational lines, you're going to go down to the lowest common denominator, and that's going to be at the expense of sound Bible doctrine and separation. Bob Jones University played a major role in the split between fundamentalism and new evangelicalism. A little bit more about Billy Graham here. He attended Bob Jones College for a year before moving on. In 1947, Bob Jones Sr. gave him an honorary degree. When Graham conducted his first ecumenical crusade in New York City in 1957, Bob Jones separated from him and warned of his compromise. 6 members of the BJU board resigned, and Graham's father-in-law, Nelson Bell, sent a letter to thousands of pastors slanderously accusing Jones of hatred, distortions, jealousies, envying, malice, false witnessing, and untruthfulness. The BJU student body decreased by about 10%. And so big split there. At the time, evangelicalism and fundamentalism were kind of seen as one of the same, but that was a turning point in the fundamentalist movement and evangelicalism, or what would become new evangelicalism, which repudiated separatism. BJU held Sunday services on campus until 2013, when students could attend an approved church, which those churches are of all different kinds of denominations, such as Presbyterian, Methodist, Gospel Chapel, Christian Fellowship, Bible churches, and Fundamental Baptist churches. So much. And it is a liberal arts college, so they are not claiming to be a Bible college in the sense of just standing with one particular kind of church. So they're not the only college, liberal arts Christian college, that would be that way. But it is an indication of their interdenominationalism, which then is at the expense of sound doctrine and coherency among their students and graduates. BJU emphasizes the arts and also has a psychology department, so they have really strayed from a solid biblical foundation, particularly with training preachers, and given over to more of a psychological philosophies. And I'm sure they still try to look at things from more of a biblical viewpoint as much as they can do, but it just shows the direction. Because usually when you start going in the direction of the arts and psychology, you're parting ways with being sound in the scriptures, and that is what is happening with Bob Jones. In 1983, the IRS revoked BJU's tax-exempt status because of its rejection of interracial dating and marriage. And so that was what they're known. They were known very controversially as not allowing that, and dating and not encouraging marriage among their students, those of different, that says we use the term racial, interracial, but pretty much color or ethnicity, and based on particularly, of course, black and white, not dating or marrying each other. So that was up to that point they had still banned that, and the ban was dropped in 2000. BJU has promoted the critical Greek text from the beginning, while still officially using the King James Version, and the English Standard Version, the ESV, is heavily favored now among those at Bob Jones, and it's been that way for a number of years. and that is a favorite of New Reformed Calvinists. And Calvinism runs rampant at BJU, and they openly fellowship with other non-Baptist Reformed and Calvinists, and so that's the doctrinal danger regarding BJU. Stephen Jones became president in 2005. He apologized for the school's past racial discrimination in 2008. Steve Pettit became the BJU president in 2014, and he has continued to lead the school away from its founding principles. The school supports the use of some contemporary worship music. Dr. Frank Garlock warned about CCM in years past, but the school has changed its position, and they especially like the music of the Gettys, Keith and Kristen Getty, and Sovereign Grace music. The Gettys are new Reformed Calvinists and write catchy hymns that sound conservative, but they are a bridge to the CCM world. And if you listen to their music, their concerts and things, very much contemporary, and they love using music and all different kinds of music to try to bring people together of all different denominations. So right along with that interdenominationalism, and Bob Jones is wholeheartedly supporting that. And BJU is a strong Calvinist influence within it. In 2019, Steve Pettit participated in the Greenville Conference on Reformed Theology at the Second Presbyterian Church. The 2021 Foundations Conference was held on campus in December, and this is being recorded after the fact, but at the time this lesson was originally taught, it hadn't happened yet. But it was in December 2021. Speakers such as Stephen Lawson, affiliated with Ligonier Ministries and Master's Seminary, Clarence Sexton, who is not a Calvinist, he's Fundamental Baptist, and so he's mixing it up with them. Joel Beek, Puritan Reformed Theological Seminary and pastor of Heritage Reformed Congregation in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Todd Friel, who has a syndicated radio and TV program and is a staunch Calvinist. And Reverend Armin Tomasian, who is Free Presbyterian. And by the way, it's not just simply Calvinism that's the issue here. It is other aspects of Reformed theology, amillennialism. I don't know if any of these are okay with infant baptism, sprinkling, but definitely dangerous waters scripturally, even beyond just simple Calvinism. The dangerous waters there in what BJU is involved with, and Steve Pettit. Which makes you wonder, does Steve Pettit himself hold those same views? Very possibly. And so that is where we're going to stop today. With Bob Jones University, and we'll pick up with the next portion of this in the fundamentalist movement in the next lesson, which the next lesson we'll be picking it up actually the ones that were recorded live. And so this is once again re-recording the lesson 65 from October 17th, 2021, History of the Churches in Modern Times.